Here, if you've got kids, he's been messaging an 11-year-old girl, an actual girl on Snapchat, sending in justification.
You don't have fucking me messing anyone around. Hey, are you pushing? No, that's assault. That's assault.
You come out and defend. 11-year-old is an 11-year-old. Why is a man messing an 11-year-old? Doesn't matter what you say. They should have started in the first place. Think about the logic, bro. Think about the logic. Why would a man message an 11-year-old girl?
My house now! What are you going to throw?
Do it again.
This is a picture of the future, not a boot stamping on a human face, but a camera recording a human face. The faces of innocent people being made to suffer misery and being recorded while it happens for the sadistic gratification of morons. In a previous video called Auditing Points to a Huxleyan Future, I discussed the competing dystopian visions of George Orwell and Aldous Huxley. While I believe that some of the Orwellian vision of tyranny through hard power resembles our society, the main evidence for this being the frightening compliance and obedience of the public during the hysteria of COVID-19, I also think that Aldous Huxley's vision of tyranny through pleasure is likely to prove to be the more accurate of the two. And here is the sadistic face of that Huxleyan future. George Orwell had the inner party official, O'Brien, as the main villain. I think Aldous Huxley's main character is much more frightening. It's DP Audits, and this is him, a mindless, stupid, sadistic thug who turns up at people's homes, people who have not been afforded due process of law, have not been convicted of anything, and are in fact completely innocent, and shouts and screams at them while accusing them of sex crimes. His behaviour is abominable, not just on this occasion, but on other occasions. He deserves to be punished by the criminal justice system. But why is he doing it? He's doing it because he's a horrible man, a sadistic bully, and a narcissist. But he must believe that there is a demand for this content, so this is not just about him. He wants to be a hero. He wants people to admire him and congratulate him on tracking down a sex offender, supposedly. And he wants people to know it is him who has done this, hence the screaming and shouting at the door of these innocent people, which is like a child wanting attention, but just brings misery into people's lives, and achieves nothing. But to want to do this, he must believe there are people who will admire him and congratulate him, even though the person he accuses has not even been given a fair trial. Indeed, there are people who will admire him and congratulate him for this. Indeed, they will admire him and congratulate him for the very fact that he has not given due process to the person he is throwing accusations at. So we have to ask why. When he's not chasing sex criminals, DP Audits is filming street scenes of vulnerable people. But he doesn't just record what he sees unobtrusively and allow viewers to think for themselves and form their own opinions about it. He imposes himself. He doesn't fade into the background as if he were part of the scene and not apart from it. In reality, he curates people's distress to create misleading content that he thinks lots of people will enjoy watching. And lots of people do, because the misery of others has become a type of pornography. It is gratifying to some people, and people commune in it. In the comment space they share and relish in the misery of others through a sort of synthetic anger about it. It is a communion of sadists. When I uploaded my videos about DJE Media, people congratulated me, but many of these same people were missing the point. I haven't stood outside his house shouting and screaming, and I don't want you to do that either. I haven't put his name and face on the front page of a newspaper, and I'm still not sure that was a very good idea. In fact, I don't think putting his name and face on the front page of a regional newspaper was the right thing to do. I say that because YouTube, the police and the authorities should be dealing with him, and so the extreme measure of putting his name and face on the front of a newspaper should not have been needed, and is really the result of the shocking impotence of YouTube in particular, and also the police and the authorities. YouTube should by now have removed Curtis Arnold from this platform. But the problem is that if the law and people in authority do not step in to deal with wrongdoing, it does open the way for all sorts of horrors and unpleasantness, for people to take matters into their own hands. For me, for this channel, Street Video Reviewer, the point about Curtis Arnold was education. It was to highlight the combination of his prior offences, which are not yet spent, and his current behaviour, which is an echo of his prior offences, albeit less serious. Curtis Arnold hasn't changed in his essential character. He hasn't left his past behind. He is, to an extent, still that person, and that is why he should be removed from this platform, so that he cannot victimise any more people. But my intention was not to monsterise Curtis Arnold, an important distinction. I think monsters in fiction are a projection of a common primeval fear, that of being the outsider. It seems no coincidence that these stories about monsters are often associated with winter and cold. Back in our early history, before the dawn of civilization, we evolved in primitive communities that hunted to survive and had to survive winters, and so being antisocial or an outsider must have been quite literally a death sentence. At base, we are still those same animals that we were when we first emerged, aeons ago. And there is also, concomitantly, I think, a tendency for people to latch on to charismatic personalities or elevate individuals to heroic status, which I think comes out of that primeval vulnerability. Often this happens just because the charismatic or powerful person is giving people a message that touches their emotional buttons, be it to make them angry or to make them sad or make them laugh. In Curtis Arnold's case, he's riding on the back of a trend of presenting Britain as a place of doom and gloom. And I think there is a natural tendency, an extension of what I've just mentioned, in most people to look for leaders. Not just leaders in the sense of people who guide others and maybe tell other people what to do, but also leaders in the sense of thought influencers. Curtis Arnold was, and I suppose still is, such a person in the sense of people believing he was and is giving them truth. But now the truth about him has been fully revealed, he has lost much of his influence. And rightly so. That is the power of education. It shortcuts these base instincts that make us predictable animals, almost like robots that can be programmed. To many of us, Curtis Arnold was always and remains just a ridiculous non-entity, a comical weightlifter who wears spandex leggings and has an amusing walk. Most real tyrants do have a comical aspect to them, especially the sadistic ones. He reminds me a little of the Jesse Ventura character in The Running Man. He was a sadist and a bully too.
Are you ready for pain? Are you ready for suffering? If the answer is yes, then you're ready for Captain Freedom's workout.
Yes, it's America's own Captain Freedom.
That's the ticket. No pain, no gain.
So, when you hear the tone, control your jealousy and leave your message.
Curtis Arnold remains quite popular though. He still has a following. This brings to mind for me a German film from the 1930s that I once saw that I want to mention, titled Das Blaue Licht, meaning the Blue Light. A strange woman called Hunter lives in the mountains and is shunned by the people of a village below. She appears to them to possess a mysterious gift that puts fear in them. She is able to climb the mountain and enter a hidden grotto that also draws young men from the village, but they never reach it. Tragically, every man who attempts to climb falls to his death. Inevitably, the witch is blamed. What the villagers don't know is that the grotto contains crystals that shine a blue light. Hunter innocently derives joy from the crystals in the grotto. One day, she meets a man called Vito who eventually finds a way to climb up to the grotto. When he enters and discovers the crystals, he immediately betrays Hunter and tells the villagers of his discovery. Using the same route as Vito, they greedily take all the crystals while Hunter is sleeping. For me, the message behind the film, whether intended or not, is deeply pessimistic. It is about how man has a terrible nature that calls back to his vestigial animal instincts, how innocence is castigated and evil often succeeds and is even celebrated. It never occurs to Junta, the woman of the mountains, that the crystals could bring her material wealth. She is innocent of the real world that exists below the mountains. By contrast, Vito from the real world immediately understands the material value of the crystals and thinks of nothing else than telling the villagers so that he and they can profit, without any regard for Junta or the innocent joy that could be derived from the crystals. In my view, most people are simple, self-seeking and greedy, and everything is fake. The sentiments people express about paedophiles and protecting children are really just excuses for people to exercise their sadistic urges against society's scapegoats. In a way, when you consider that we live in a sort of information economy, in which units of information are now sellable commodities, calling someone a paedophile or similar has become a sellable commodity, whether the allegation is true or not, or fair or not. The truth, which could be seen as analogous to Junta's mountain crystals that shone a blue light, has been sold. Its value, the light, has been forgotten or overlooked.